2023 is halfway over, which means it's time for a mid-year check-in. This is not the mid-year freak-out tag or anything like that. This is just me coming to you to say, hey, how are the vibes? How is the progress coming along on all the things that I pledged myself to and stressed myself out about at the beginning of the year, and what is going to be coming down the pipe? Also, some channel updates. So you'll want to tune in to the end for that, because I will be asking for a little bit of feedback from everyone that's watching this video, and I would love to hear from you. But first, I want to go over all the things that I am reading or have read and exactly what I think of it. This year is a lot more of uncharted territory for me, and that is because I am diversifying my reading taste. I'm reading a lot of different stuff, and there have been some really big hits for me, and there's also some big misses here in this year as well. And that comes with the territory of trying new things, which is all fine and dandy. I think very few books this year will probably go on my all-time favorites list, but there's still a couple that might qualify. So it's not like I'm having a bad reading year. It's just, hey, I'm getting a lot of different looks, and I think that's a good thing. Obviously, the channel name's The Fantasy Network, but I do read outside of that quite often, and more so this year than any other year. So obviously, I've read fantasy this year, but I've also read sci-fi, horror, westerns, contemporary fiction, some classics, Russian literature, which is, not something that I ever thought that I would be into, but I am enjoying it quite a bit. I also have some historical fiction in there as well, maybe some historical sci-fi even, crime, thriller, you name it. I've probably tried it this year. Tons and tons of new authors are new authors to me, and this is the kind of stuff I get excited about, because sometimes a book just grabs you and you had no idea that it would. For instance, I just read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I finished it like yesterday. Oh my God, I love that book so much. And now it's kind of sending me down a little bit of a rabbit hole of finding more like crime/thrillers type deal, noir, I guess. I'm not as well read in that genre as many of you probably watching this are, but I just thought that book was fantastic, and it's really opened up my eyes that this is something, this is a genre that I'd like to read in more often. But without a doubt, the standout genre this year outside of fantasy, I love fantasy. I've read about 24 fantasy books this year, but I've actually read 14 to 15 sci-fi books this year as well. So that ratio has never been this close. So some standouts that I'm just going to mention, these are not all of them. These are just kind of off the top of my head, but I have to say China Miéville's Baslag series has to be one of the most underrated series on YouTube when it comes to books. In my opinion, Baslag is one of the best worlds. It's on the same level as something like Middle Earth, in my opinion, and just far different from almost anything else that's ever been done in the fantasy genre. And I know a lot of people like Adrian Tchaikovsky, and he has definitely taken a lot of inspiration, especially with the weird bug stuff, from China Miéville. So if you're a fan of that kind of world building, I would definitely invite you to try out China Miéville. But also, Song for Arbonne, I've been talking about a lot on the channel recently. I'm a big fan of that. Wool, which got turned into a TV show, and I'm hoping to have a video about that in the near future. Really enjoyed that by Hugh Howey. Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky was a major standout. Trader Boru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson, another new author to me, might be my book of the year so far. And then you have things like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is by Leo Tolstoy. I probably pronounced that book title wrong. Love that story as well. So just a bunch of stuff. And also I have to mention Philip K. Dick. I've read 2 books from him this year, which was Man in the High Castle and Ubik, and I thought both were just incredibly wild, and I really enjoy that man's mind and his imagination. And then Octavia Butler, Kindred's one of the most powerful books I've ever read in my entire life. So there's a lot of standouts this year. Will all these make my favorites of all time list? No. But this year's top 10 is going to be a dog fight. Like a lot of that 4.5 star vibe coming from these books. And then also just things that are different. It's going to be the most widely varied top 10 list at the end of this year. And it's going to be, as always, tough competition for each book. But I think it'll be different than anything I've done in years prior. And as I've made my way through the fantasy genre, obviously getting a lot of that under my belt for the last however many years has opened up a lot of space to go and explore these other genres, which is really great. But I'm also really just trying to slow down. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you feel like, hey, I got to pump the brakes and really get immersed in this. Some books do lend themselves to binge reading. Some are meant to be read faster than others, in my opinion. But I'm trying to slow down just a teeny bit And I want that to be reflected in the videos I'm making here on the channel as well. I will always do reviews on this channel unless if something drastically changes in my attitude towards them, or maybe I feel like I can't say anything new about any new books, which I don't think is likely. But I always do reviews here on the channel. But I also want my approach to books to be reflected in the videos that I make for everyone that watches them. And I think some books, I don't want to say deserve, but some books are better suited with a showcase, if that makes sense, rather than a review. And this also extends itself to one of the things I think I have really failed at in the last year or two. The thing that I have failed at is being able to approach or to garner new readers. And maybe this is someone who has fallen out of love with books, or it is someone who never thought that they would enjoy books at all, never tried sci-fi, fantasy, or any of this stuff. Or, just someone who is simply just interested, but doesn't know where to take that jump. And I think over the last year or two, I have really fallen short with that. And one of the core motivations of this channel when I began was to get other people into reading. I love bringing new people into this and having them get excited about books that maybe I've read or maybe I haven't read. And, the wider the pool of people is that you talk to about books, the better recommendations you can get, the crazier stuff that you can find, those diamonds in the rough, which I always talk about. And I really want to have videos on the channel that are approachable from someone maybe who's on the outside looking in. Clearly, the core of everything I do here are people who are really fired up about books, and they're motivated and they're enthusiastic, but I also want to bring in other people. That doesn't mean that it has to be one or the other, and that is not what I'm saying at all, but I just feel like I haven't had those new readers or people who aren't readers in mind as much. And I think that some of the stuff that I read, if it were presented in a manner of showcase in an informative way, that maybe that would get more people to try it. Even dedicated readers, because I know a lot of people when it comes to reviews, and reviews can get people in. I've had people say, hey man, I'm not a really big reader, but I saw this review randomly and now I'm going to pick it up. And that's awesome. But a lot of times with reviews, people will actually avoid them until they've read the book themselves. I do that a lot of the time, especially if I'm going to do a review for it. I will not watch other people's videos because I don't want their opinion to seep into me and I don't want to be influenced by it. I want to have my own thoughts and opinions, especially, when I'm making videos. I think being original and having something new to say is very, very important. So that's one of the goals. That's one of the failures I feel like I've had. And maybe some of you feel different. Maybe you're going to say, no, like your channel is what got me back into reading. And I would be super happy to hear that. And I have heard it before. But I do want to have that in mind, and I want to pursue that objective a little bit more actively in the videos that I make. In my opinion, it's a very tough challenge. I don't think this is something that is easily done. One would say that the wider net that you cast in some ways could be easier, but also in some ways it can definitely be harder, especially for someone who loves the nitty-gritty details like I do. Now, as far as progress and how the year's been going, on specific goals, I set out to try some authors and I set out to try some series this year. And when I say try series, basically the checkbox can be checked if I tried it. I don't have to complete any of these series because that would just be asinine. I'm in the middle of like 40 series right now. So just getting to book one is good enough for me. For authors that I wanted to try Octavia Butler, Michael Moorcock, Philip K. Dick, Lois McMaster Bujold, and Gene Wolfe. And I have tried all of these, which is great, except for Gene Wolfe. And I will be, guys, I always say wolf, like woof. So I'm trying to overpronunciate the L in wolf. And I just feel weird. Like I wish I just never had to say it. So I'm going to say Book of the New Sun from now on. And I'm never going to mention Leah Caru's book, The Wolf, ever again. Because I just, for some reason, too many concussions, too many hits to the head. I just can't pronounce wolf. I don't know why. But anyways, I still plan on getting to Book of the New Sun this year, which will give me a try good old Gene over there. And yeah, I'm excited for this. I will definitely be doing Book of the New Sun. I will be starting it. I definitely will not finish it unless if something like grabs a hold of me in the series, but this is not one that I want to read fast. I want to take my time. I want to maybe consume some of the content around this so I can actually understand what's going on. And with Book of the New Sun, knowing that it's so challenging, it is one that I will have to be in the mood for, which is why I haven't got to it yet. I cleared out all the other ones. Butler was fantastic, Moorcock, Philip K. Dick, Lois McMaster Bujold, all those were major hits with me. and I expect the same whenever I get into Book of the New Sun. Now, for the series progress report, I have the Donovan series by W. Michael Gear, which is a sci-fi futuristic thing. I think it might be dystopic. I honestly don't know much about it other than I had it recommended to me. I read the synopsis on the back of the book. I said, it sounds really cool. I'll have to give it a shot. And I've never heard anyone else talk about it, so I figured it would be fun to have a little hipster series here on the channel. Also, Gormenghast Trilogy was something that I wanted to try this year, along with Blackwater by Michael McDowell, The Masquerade by Seth Dickinson, Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham, and The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. I have attempted or started all of these series, and I've actually completed some of them, with the exception of the Donovan series. I will get to it this year, so that's still on the slate to happen. It just hasn't happened yet. I finished Long Price Quartet and the Greenbone Saga. I actually binged those two. They were very bingeable to me. Long Price Quartet was unanimously a home run with me. Daniel Abraham is one of those authors that it seems like a lot of people, at least in this sphere, don't mesh with him. There are plenty of creators here on YouTube that do enjoy it, but whenever it comes to the general audience, I feel like it's not as big of a hit as I wish it was. But I love Long Price Quartet, more of what I like about Daniel Abraham and his slow burns. And then, of course, the Greenbone Saga, which is probably the most polarizing series I've read this year, because if I had to pick a biggest disappointment of the year, in some ways it would be Greenbone Saga, but also not, because I love so much of this series, but there's other parts of it that just make me downright annoyed or mad. So at least it's interesting. At least it's interesting in the fact that I have opinions about it. And I probably need to do a video. I was kind of waiting to do the discussions with Philip, Taylor, and Bookborn, but those kind of stalled out a little bit. We are going to do them, but we had some life events go on with some of our participants, which is, totally fine. So I should probably just make my own trilogy review at this point. I did a review for Jade City, and my opinions changed since then. And I had a lot to say about books 2 and 3. So maybe if I can collect my thoughts, I'll do a video on it, because it's just such a highest highs and the lowest lows. It's like Final Fantasy 16. I feel the same way about that video game. Some great stuff, some not so great stuff. And my least favorite book of the 3 was actually Jade Legacy, which I think is what the kids call a hot take, because I saw this compared to some of the greatest books in the fantasy genre, and it just simply was not that for me, even though I did like parts of it. By the way, probably the most other disappointing thing, and this has nothing to do with the series, is probably Tagana by Guy Gavriel. I expected it to be my book of the year, and it's my least favorite GGK book I've read so far. So that was also interesting. So yeah, I've completed 2 of these series with Greenbone and Long Price Quartet, and then I did also start The Masquerade by Seth Dickinson, reading the Trader Baru Cormorant. I am not going to continue this until book 4 is published. Book 2 and 3 are out. The final 4th book, apparently, Seth Dickinson wasn't happy with it. He kind of decided to, I don't think scrap it, but kind of rewrite it. So I'm just going to wait, because book 1 does serve pretty well as a contained story, even though I want to know where it goes. So I'm going to put that on pause, but I can't express to you how much I like the Trader Baru Cormorant. Like, in contention for book of the year so far at this halfway point. And I also started Blackwater by Michael McDowell, which, the first book is like 120, 130 pages. I have all of them, and this is one I'm just going to kind of dip back into every few months and take my time with. It has that Southern Gothic feel with just add a horror that you forget is going to be there, because the family dynamics are so interesting in this little town of Perdido, Alabama, which Perdido, I think Perdido Street Station, so that's kind of cool. But this is really good. This is really, really good stuff. If you like a little bit more of the methodical horror mixed with that Southern Gothic vibe, my goodness, was book 1 good. And I do need to continue this and get book 2 in maybe by the end of the year. And then we come to Gormenghast. So Gormenghast is one that I did start, but I did not finish the first book. And before anyone is too upset, I read about 50 pages of it, and I did not realize how strange and abstract it was going to be, even though people warned me that it would be. I found the writing to be so crazy good, like it just almost intoxicating at times. However, I was not in the mood for it. So I will be putting Gormenghast back on the shelf, but I will read it at a later time now that I kind of know what to expect, or maybe what not to expect from that trilogy. This is one that I will return to at a later time. Will it be this year? It just depends on my mood. I could see that being a fun fall read for some reason. So maybe, but it's not that I didn't like Gormenghast. I simply just wasn't in the mood for it. And I'm never, I'm not forcing myself to force feed myself something that I hope to enjoy, because that's going to just end up being a rotten experience. So I want to enjoy Gormenghast, and I just have to pick the correct time. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm going to be reading the rest of this year. These are pretty much locked in unless there's something or massive changes or, whatever. And then I'm also going to be going over some channel updates /plans / ask you a question. So the things I'm planning on reading for sure in the back half of 2023 are Otherland in September by Tad Williams. I actually started Shadow March back in February or something like that. And I put that on pause because I was waiting for The Last King of Ostenard's final book to release this year, and I was just going to read The Last King of Ostenard. I was super excited. Unfortunately, the final book has been delayed into 2024, so I'm going to wait till that's out to start reading Last King of Ostenard, because I want to be I want to be there. I want to be immersed. I don't want to be sucked out of it, but I still want to read some Tad Williams. And that's where Otherland comes in. The pace of this, I'm going to try to do a book a month. They're big books. Like, they are thick boys, because Tad Williams loves to write. So starting in September, I'm hoping maybe by December, January to get that wrapped up, but there's no rush with that. And I'm just so excited to read more Tad Williams. You guys know I love Tad Williams, but also on top of that, it's something different. Shadow March is still epic fantasy. Otherland, I've heard, is just out there. I've heard it's really crazy, and Tad is at his best for me when he gets weird. I am going to finish the Millennium trilogy. After reading The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I am so in on this. Like, I haven't read a book that fast in a long, long time, and I just thought it was absolutely incredible. I'm a huge fan of crime shows. Like, Mayor of Easttown was phenomenal. There was a show that was canceled like twice called The Killing. Have you ever seen it? Man, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo gave me all of those vibes. And I know that movie came out and books came out way before these shows, but I saw them first. So it just reminded me of that. And, I've not dove into crime books. And this is something I need to correct, because those are some of my favorite TV shows. I assume that they would also be some of my favorite books. So I'm definitely going to finish that. I have absolutely zero interest in the sequels. There's like a sequel trilogy after this. The original author passed away. I'm forgetting his name at the moment. But essentially they hired some other dude, the publisher did, to continue to write in this series. I have no interest in any of that, especially because I've heard that it maybe was against the family's wishes. I don't know if that's true, but either way, I've heard they kind of suck. So I'm not going to read them. I'm just going to read those first three and try to just savor that experience. If it's anything like book one, it's going to be a 5 out of 5 for me. Every October, I read some horror book, and it's usually Stephen King. And this year, again, it will be King, and it will be Under the Dome.
Oh, I heard that ending sucks.
Yes, Bobby, I am aware that the ending sucks. Everyone tells me the ending sucks. I don't care. I'm going to be doing Journey Before Destination, and I love the idea of the premise. I know super little about the book other than like kind of the general idea of what's going on, and I'm hyped. I love Stephen King, even for his faults and some of his cruddy endings. I'm going to love Under the Dome, and I cannot wait to read that. I already told you Book of the New Sun and the Donovan series are something that I'm going to start this year, but there are two other big focuses fantasy-wise, and I've kind of sat down and we talked about slowing down, and part of that is when I do a series, I would like to be doing more videos and stuff around these series. And when I started to think about like what is getting me fired up, like what have I started that I haven't finished that I should really focus on? And two series came to mind. So when we're talking about, fantasy epic series, these are the two that I really would like to hone in on the second half of 2023 and really be my primary focus. And that is The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I read books 2 and 3 this year, and I loved them both. Book 2 is definitely in the top 10 books so far this year, which is Shadows Linger. I thought it was excellent. And I love The White Rose as well, just not as much as Shadows Linger, though it's very, very close. So I will be going back to Black Company before the end of the year, probably reading Silver Spike and reading all that stuff. So that's one that I would really like to make more videos on and take my time with. I really love Glenn Cook. I understand that some people find his writing a little bit too terse or whatever, but for me, it's that military fantasy with a lot of that D&D inspiration and a unique writing style being told by Croker in the instances of what I've read. I just love it. I love the chronicling tale. It works. And it's just one of those series I think it deserves a lot of my attention. So it's going to be a focus here on the channel in the back half of 2023. And the next one is a series I haven't read in over a year, and I want to return to it. and that is The Chronicles of Amber, or The Books of Amber, however you want to say it, by Roger Zelazny. This is published back in the 60s and 70s, I believe. And I read the first two books, and I really enjoyed them. I thought Roger Zelazny's writing was insanely good. You would never know, in my opinion, that it was written in the 60s and 70s. It is just as modern as anything today. I think he's a better writer than a lot of stuff that we read in the current day, or 80s, 90s, whatever. I think Roger Zelazny's the man. A lot of amazing authors also, list him as one of their biggest influences. So Roger Zelazny, and I love Lord of Light, by the way. Phenomenal book. So I want to get back to the Books of Amber, Chronicles of Amber, and I need to pick back up with book 3. Now, the first 5 kind of have an arc, and then supposedly the second 5 have an arc. I've heard that the back half isn't as well-rounded, or maybe not as quality. I don't know. I'll have to see what I think about that. But one thing I can say for sure is I'm going to try to read those first 5 books and then make some videos about it. Maybe get you fired up about it, because I'd like more people to talk about this series and also talk about Roger Zelazny. It kind of fell to the wayside for some reason. When books are really, really short, like the Books of Amber are, they're only 150, 250 pages, maybe 300 in some cases. Sometimes I feel like I almost forget about them, because I'm like, oh, that'll be easy. I'll just fit it in here and there. And then lo and behold, it falls way down in the TBR. So I am going to be getting back to the Chronicles of Amber this year for sure. I'm at least going to read one of them, but I'm going to try to focus on that after Black Company. So that would be priority number 2. And I hope that maybe I can generate a little bit of excitement about a series that has been somewhat forgotten and, in my opinion, probably underrated. Now, I have 2 higher effort videos in the pipeline, by the way. They're going to take some time to do, but they're ones that I've had on my mind for over a year. And one is going to be just one video, and it'll stand alone by itself. But the other one is going to be a series of videos that's going to take a lot of effort. It could contain anywhere between 7 to 10 videos. And we're talking long videos, probably 30 to 45 minutes, possibly, maybe even more. I have to see. I have to shoot the first one, see how it goes. So those are something to keep your eye out for. I'm going to keep it a little close to my chest right now, but I'm working on it, and I'm really excited about them. They may not do well at all. And, if the 7 to 10 video one doesn't do well, then, maybe I have to rethink it, because it's a lot of time investment. But the other one that's a standalone, I am 100% sure people that are, fans of what I do here, I think will really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's something that maybe you can keep in the back of your mind as something to look forward to here on the channel. And then we have, of course, Chatting with Nuts. So Chatting with Nuts has been going on for 3.5 years now, pretty much as long as I've been doing my channel, maybe just a little bit shorter, and it is growing. Chatting with Nuts is getting bigger, which is flabbergasting to me, and super humbling that people want to show up and hear me chat with my friends or people that I bring in that I think are interesting. And this show is not stopping anytime soon. Now, I'm bringing some new ideas to the show. I'm always playing with things, soundboards, different types of guests, different types of conversation. And I've been going every 2 weeks for almost 3 years now. I think the regular intervals for my show have been one of the reasons that it's found success. And I think it's one of the reasons why people have tuned in, because they can rely on it. With that said, I'm still going to be doing Chatting with Nuts multiple times a month. There are going to be more instances possibly of there being 3 weeks between episodes, just to keep things fresh, and also to give me a little bit more time to maybe add some of these new ideas into the show. For the most part, I think it's going to still be running bi-weekly, but I'm just letting you know that there are going to be some times where we have to skip a week and push it to 3 weeks out. So not a really big change there. But there is something I've been kicking around, and I wanted to ask you, because you're the viewer. And I've been kicking around the idea of maybe possibly doing a seasonal approach to Chatting with Nuts. Maybe for 9 months out of the year, we do Chatting with Nuts, and then we have a 3-month off season. And approaching that season would be mashing in some of the ideas that I've had. So maybe a theme through the season could be one thing, or having various opposing opinions throughout a season about a certain array of topics, because I never want it to be super precise. I like the fact that it's free form. I like the fact that sometimes we don't talk about books for over an hour. Sometimes it's just, talking about life or other things. And I want to keep the spirit of that show. But I've been thinking about maybe trying a seasonal approach. And I think if I did that, it would possibly make it feel a little bit more like an event. And it would also give me, maybe a 2 or 3 month period where I could then change up the show, right? And I could do things, bring in new ideas, new technology. I've upgraded a lot of stuff this year, which I would never be able to do without my patrons. So thank you guys so much. but it would kind of let me recharge my batteries too. So what do you think? Would a seasonal approach be good? Or do you think that you would rather have it running at all times? Obviously keeping in mind the benefits that I was kind of mentioning. This is not something I'm set in stone on, so don't say, oh man, Jimmy's changed. No, I'm literally looking for feedback, and it's something I've been kicking around for like the last year or so. Actually been thinking about it a long time. So I would love to hear your feedback down in the comments. Maybe I should work on speaking a little bit more. And then other projects. I do a lot of stuff. So I have this channel clearly for my bookish stuff. And then I am a part of the Bend the Knee, A Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We read one chapter a week. We also cover we cover a lot of things over on Bend the Knee, which is really great. We have different topics of discussion. It's a podcast. We also have a YouTube channel here on YouTube, obviously. And then I also have Lost in Roshar, which I'm doing with Lost in Discovery, which is a Stormlight archive by Brandon Sanderson reread podcast. And that is for people who have actually read the entire series. It is a reread. So if you're a first-time Stormlight reader, it's not something you should check out because there's going to be spoilers everywhere. But I definitely encourage you, if you're looking to reread Stormlight before book 5, we're probably not going to get there because we're doing only a few chapters every episode. But this is something that I've been really excited about and really fired up about. And it's going very, very well. We've just started it. We've only have, maybe 6 or 7 episodes. I'd love to have you guys check that out if you want to revisit the Stormlight archive. I say the same thing about Bend the Knee. It's like, we want to read other things. We want to find new favorites, but this is a way where, a chapter a week or 2 chapters a week, a few chapters a week, it lets you sit in Westeros or Roshar and feel that. And while you're still reading other stuff, it's not an overbearing commitment. And I think it's a lot of fun, even if you're not reading along, just to listen to those. So hope you go check those out. And then, of course, I have my manga channel, which is Dudes Talking Manga. I used to do that here on this channel, but I broke it out into its own thing because Andrew's taken on a lot of the responsibilities as far as just the administrative stuff goes, and then also on the creative side as well. And Dudes Talking Manga is growing. It is going to surpass this channel probably this week, today, which is crazy. Weird to think about a channel that is that young. And, I've been working on this for a long time, going on 40 years, but they're different mediums and there's a different audience, and that's really cool. But if you're someone who enjoys both books and manga, you could go check out Dudes Talking Manga if you'd like. How's your year going? What has you the most number one priority or thing you're excited about in the back half of 2023? Let me know down in the comments below. And I just want to take time to say thanks. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for just being here. It means a lot to me. And if you like the video, you can always hit like, dislikes, whatever. You guys know the deal. There's a Patreon in the description. It's optional, but always appreciated. Until I see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page. I want to give a big shout out to all of my patrons, including my Wildlings, Night's Watch, and Kingsguard. My Kingsguard include Bridger, ML, Curtis L, Jonathan J, Prithvi, Eric, Chadia, Steve Talks Books, Taylor, Matthias, Stephen, Carlos, Yolanda, Amanda L, John C, John, Garrick, Evie, Henrik, Benjamin, Sebastian, Frank, C. Scott, Bass, Wade, Darren, Jobot, Terrence, Michael, Lauren, Nicholas, Kai, Kev, Ryan, Reading Rainbow, Jay, Jennifer M, Shad, Amanda V, Ikaika, RJ, Pat, Stewart, Oscar, and Derry, and Tanner. Thank you all so much. You're the best.